Now, before I continue, I'll be diving into some controversial topics that even would make me cringe, so I implore you to turn around and shut this video off. However, if you wish to learn a different perspective, then let's get into it. There is no such thing as a male virgin. I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with the subject? And is this blasphemy? So the word virgin is derived from the Latin word virgo, which simply means girl. The fundamental concept of virginity is quite old.
You can kiss my kidney stones! That's what you can do!
The word virgin was used in classical Greece and Rome to describe a goddess or a woman who was autonomous, independent, and was not associated with or owned by a man. The term virgin came to refer to only sexual virginity considerably later. As the definition shifted, changing cultural norms began to influence how women behaved and interacted with one another. Upholding the sanctity and the purpose of a family unit became crucial as wars devastated numerous nations throughout history. Because they were capable of bearing children, women were at the center of this. The term virginity expanded beyond its original technical definition as a result of high male deaths on the battlefield and conquerors' frequent displeasure at the modesty of women left on their own. Many women have been viewed historically as little more than a war trophy that kings and powerful people would use to stock their harems. Virgin has been used primarily for a heterosexual woman who has not been penetrated by a penis and has the subtext of naive or inexperienced person. Although used asexually, the word can be applied to a chaste man. Since the early 14th century, it morphed as a derogatory term for males.
That's stupid.
You're stupid.
I forgive you.
Oh my God, thank God.
Showing at its core it's still a feminine term. Just look at a group of young men or even matured adult males engaged in banter and watch them ostracize one of their own if one was exposed or by self-proclamation to be a virgin. The ridicule can escalate to a physical altercation if exasperated.
I'll take my car.
Being how bad of a word it is to the male population and its competitive dynamics of finding a mate. I know you may find these statements immature or even sexist, but this even flows into the law of attraction.
Data. Data, why are you laughing?
I do not know.
Just let a heterosexual male tell a heterosexual woman that he is dating that he is a virgin.
What's y'all's longest relationship starting with you?
2 years.
Year and a couple months.
8 years.
Nice.
Never been in a relationship.
Oh, it's the worst. Because I know he'll be the worst in bed. Because guys that don't have relationships suck in bed. Worst kisser, worse in bed. Explains the really tight skinny jeans.
Why don't you think you've been in a relationship?
I was just more focused on working.
All I hear is excuses. Like, excuses? Sorry.
Do girls like virgin men?
Oh my god.
No, they don't.
Why not? Why not?
Because I think it would just be messy. Situation, so I don't think we do.
No. But if he was really attractive, would you date him?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a problem though, but if I could choose, I would rather be with someone who's not a virgin.
Would you prefer a man with, assume the man is 36 years old, 78 body counts, B, a virgin, or C, 1 body count but with a prostitute?
Well, virgin, nobody wants that.
All right, I'm here with
Jade.
All right, so give me your honest opinion. If you're interested in a guy, but he says he's a virgin, does that make him any less attractive?
I actually like that.
Oh, really?
Because if
you're
he
into
tells,
like pure like chastity type, like.
I don't say he has to be pure, but it's a sign that okay, he's not just sleeping around, and it's like okay, maybe he wants to do with someone special, so he's waiting for that special person.
Oh, okay.
And I respect that, so.
Okay.
That wouldn't turn me off.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'll be like, wow, awesome, yeah.
Okay. What if he's honest about it and he says like, oh, like it's not really that I want to try to be pure or like, or wait for someone special. It's just that like I haven't really been able to like get any sex or whatever. You know, like what if it's like what if it's that like?
I think. That's an interesting question. I still wouldn't be turned off by it because maybe he just didn't meet the right person and maybe
maybe just got unlucky
judged
or
him
something?
too negatively.
Okay. Yeah.
I still would give him a chance, but let's say if we go on a date and he turned me off, then
obviously
I think that's a red flag. Maybe that's why you haven't slept with anyone. So
right.
That's what I would say about that. So.
But you would still keep like an open mind, is what
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Most women today will tell you that this is not a deal breaker, but this is told to save face. And the women that genuinely find this trait attractive are part of such a small minority that it doesn't affect the overall impact of the subject at hand, that the word has feminine undertones, and the female is attracted to a male with male qualities. But this is semantics. Finally, the hymen is the woman's proof of her chastity. Even though this method is not a 100% reliable source by today's standards, it is there nonetheless. And the only proof a man has of his chastity is his word, which ironically is taken at face value over him boasting about his sexual conquest. Bottom line is that the word virgin is a feminine term, and it is reacted as such, which brings me to today's discussion.
Besides, anything beautiful is worth getting hurt for.
Well, it's very well put.
You know who said that?
No.
Me.
You're good. God. I wish I were more like you, Prince.
Finish your pancake. Let's get to work.
Oh, it's really good, but super full.
Pancake.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I started this journey back in 2015 when I was in Qatar in college studying for my software engineering degree. The discussion board assignment called for a controversial incident that had long-lasting effects on society as a whole. I chose a story that involved a writer getting their house raided after searching words online that flagged the authorities to investigate them.
FBI, open up!
How our liberties were infringed on by the Patriot Act, in which the U.S. citizens are being monitored in the name of national security. A classmate had a touche to express. The discussion went on for a while, but somehow morphed into African Americans welcoming society's negative stigma on them since they are so insistent on using a racial slur to uplift them.
That's a circular argument, and you know it.
With this challenge, I took it personally.
Really? Oh, so that's how you're gonna play it. You gonna do this? Okay, fine. That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
In spite of it being an online class and none of us saw our nationalities unless we displayed it on our personal profiles, which most of us didn't. I quickly went into the internet and started research and fell down a rabbit hole.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
A lot of conflicting facts about the word, some emotionally based and some just speculation. Even some scholars that I follow seem to give erroneous information, but I gave my rebuttal nonetheless with the facts, and I had no further opposition after that. I did come across a debate that involved scholars, namely Brother Polite and Brother Larry. This was a steer in the right direction for me, as I finally knew where to look.
Nigga is it's a poor social status for us as a people to call ourselves in this day and time. I know a lot of people out there saying nigga means black power and all that. And to tell you the truth, honestly, we can find nigga as a title of nobility that denotes an Ethiopian sovereign. That is accurate. Because when you're dealing with ancient Semitic language, just listen, Larry, it's called conflicting genes. And you had a white boy at an etymology and a spelling bee, right? And they asked the white boy. Talk to the brother. They asked the white boy. They said, "Listen, spell niggas."
That's right.
And he was scared to death. And
No,
he
just
said,
listen, brother.
"He said, what you want me to spell?"
Negus.
Negus. What is the language of origin?
Ethiopian to Amharic.
What is the definition?
A king. It's used as a title of the sovereign of Ethiopia. Negus.
Negus. Could you use it in a sentence?
The Negus ruled Ethiopia until the coup of 1974.
Negus. Could you repeat the definition?
A king. It's used as a title of the sovereign of Ethiopia. Negus.
Negus.
Andrew, would you say the word loudly for the judges?
Negus.
One more time?
Negus.
Negus.
Negus. Negus. N-E-G-U-S, Negus.
But the point is this. I don't identify myself as a nigga, and I wouldn't suggest none of the brothers and sisters today make subscriptions to that, because it has a resonant frequency to it. And right now, that is not a term that's really going to uplift us and empower us, right, in the same capacity as some other terms. But I will not deny the fact that it has some ancient relevancy. Now, if I'm talking to one of my brothers and they use it on me as a term of endearment, it's no different from the word Africa being Afrika and Arabic and then going to Fortican, and Fortican meaning separate. I'm not going to turn around and stop a brother from saying Africa and break down the etymology and everything. Say, yo, Africa means separate. I ain't an African. I'm going to listen to him based on the context in which he's driving his message home. I'm not going to be ignorant. But what I will tell you, I'm not going to deny the fact that there is historic relevancy to the word nigga, okay, that pre-exists the new definition that the white man bestowed upon us. Because the white man changed the definition of the term, let me explain something to you. It denotes the title. It's a title nobility that denotes the Ethiopian sovereign. It's seen in several places. I'm just going to Ethiopia, right? And this is actually true. The word niggas. That's actually true. It's not a lie. The word niggas is true. Listen, I'm not telling you niggas as of today, N-I-G-G. Let me finish what I'm saying.
I'm just waiting to get it.
Yo, let's get him in. Hold on, let me finish this.
I'm just waiting to rebut.
Let me finish this. Let me finish this. There's nothing to rebut because that's an actual term in Ethiopia, niggas.
That is
true.
There's
nothing to rebut. There's nothing to rebut. All right, hold on. Now let me go forward. There's nothing to rebut about that, Larry. So now what we're gonna
give me a chance.
What we're gonna do about, I don't know what the hell he's gonna say that's gonna make it. He's making me not even want to speak so I can help. But anyway, it is a title of nobility that denotes an Ethiopian sovereign. I'm not playing around with the spelling, nothing. N-E-G-U-S. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's affiliated with niggas or nothing.
Right.
I'm leaving it as is.
Right.
Though we know through cultural diffusion, we see the words change form, especially when they're coming out of Semitic languages. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to associate it to today's nigga. What I'm going to say is this. When a white man came into town and he was jealous of black people, he said, look at those niggas over there. Look at those kings. But he didn't call us kings in the context of the Ethiopian language. He said, take a look at these niggas. And eventually it took on a negative connotation because he didn't like seeing us as kings.
He said the same thing.
He didn't like seeing us as kings. So eventually, if we get oppressed and we are subjugated by these people, a word that had a positive connotation can be reciprocated. That's a reality. It's a reality. Okay? So that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
But first, I want you to say this. You never answered the first question.
Peace. Understanding that the brother's young, right?
There we go with that shit.
Understanding that the brother's young, right? The brother is, listen now. Let's hear him out. Let him understanding that the brother is young, right? I will not fault him for his misinterpretation, right? I will, however, provide him with an accurate interpretation. Now, because that little white boy on that YouTube video was not properly pronouncing an Amharic word, which is niggas, right? Not niggas.
That's even better.
Wait, time out. Not niggas, negus, right? Which means prince, right? Now, what I'm saying to you is that negus in Amharic has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with the word that evolved on this continent.
Why are you saying that? I said I'm not associating the two words.
Time out. Wait.
That's a straw man argument.
Wait, no.
Let me say.
Are you gonna let me finish?
I'm gonna let you finish, but I want you to say.
Didn't I let you finish?
Yeah, but I can show you something.
I'm gonna show you
the saying
difference.
that.
I'm gonna come to you.
By him saying that, he's giving people the impression that I made an association with the two words.
Actually, you did make the association.
I said I'm not gonna make an association.
Well, listen. I know what he said.
I'm not gonna make an association.
I know what he said. However, he also stated that the white man heard us saying, "Look at those niggas over there." Right now, what I'm saying to you is this, right? The word has nothing to do. One has nothing to do with the other. One comes from Spanish and is negro, corrupted as negra, and then anglicized as nigger, and then urbanized as nigga. That's the one. The other is the Ethiopian or Amharic word negus in an attempt to justify the use and abuse of the term nigga in this society. Dudes are reaching for straws all over the world. They reach into Cambodia with Naga. They reach into India. They reach into ancient Abyssinia or Ethiopia. They reaching for things. They reaching back into Kemet and the Medu Netta.
Let me know
talking about Africa.
I don't know what hurt she believes she's had from slavery. All of this was addressed 2 centuries ago. Everything has consequences. All history has consequences and ramifications. But, you know, if we were to play this fairly, we would at least look at all of the countries around the world that engaged in the slave trade who are simply not interested in any form of reparations. The Ottoman Empire, all the Arab countries who not just traded far more slaves than across the Atlantic, but castrated all the men so that there wouldn't be any more African slaves after them. They worked them to the bone. I see no interest across Africa in paying reparations for selling their brother and sister Africans into slavery.
Man, Sit your dumb ass down.
Man, sit your ass down. Man, sit your ass down.
Ghana has granted citizenship to several African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans as part of the Country Beyond the Return initiative to attract resettlement of Africa descendants. In 2019, Ghana successfully hosted the Year of Return with raft of activities at home and abroad to encourage the descendants of those who were forcibly sent into slavery to return home to Africa. Ghana has become a repatriation hotspot for many Black Americans over the last few years, since the country hosts, among others, the many castles and forts which were used in the slave trade. Ghana was used as a slave trade hub during the transatlantic slave trade. The Portuguese built the first permanent slave trading post at Elmina on the Gold Coast, now Ghana. This eventually passed through Dutch and English hands, and by the 18th century was handling 30,000 slaves each year. According to documented history between 1650 and 1900, 10.2 million enslaved Africans arrived in the Americas from the 8 regions in Africa used for the slave trade. About 80% of the Africans who were enslaved and transported in the transatlantic slave trade went through the many castles and forts which can be found in Ghana.
To signal our collective determination that never again will the African peoples allow themselves to be captured and sold into slavery as commodities in foreign unknown lands to help build their wealth from whose enjoyment they were largely excluded. It would provide a bridge for the reunification of the global African family, to construct a new future of progress and prosperity for the Black peoples of the world. And would also put the spotlight on Ghana's Pan-African credentials, showcasing Ghana's vision of bringing unity and dignity back to the process of social and economic development in Africa and in the African diaspora.
For some, Ghana is a destination where worries about safety and racism are non-existent. For others, Ghana is a place where expatriates feel they can effortlessly thrive while connecting with their ancestral roots. Ghana is the only African country which grants free residential permit to any Black person born outside Africa to live in the country as long as they want through their right of abode law. Upon living in Ghana for some few years, citizenship are automatically granted. Here are some of the statements of African Americans whose African citizenship were restored to them.
Now it's gonna turn up, oh. Oh yeah, now I can do a lot more. You know, I really want to get into a lot of things like real estate. I want to do, you know, business, a lot of business. I want to do entertainment still. I want to travel across West Africa on my new Ghanaian passport. Hey, Charlie, no more visa. Oh.
I'm so pleased to have finally received my citizenship today. The first visit to Ghana was in 1970 when I was a much younger person, and I've always felt at home here in Ghana. I now have a home here, and we built a house about 10 years ago, and we're spending time here and look forward to being productive.
Grantee for citizenship. And actually, the way I'm dressed now, I wanted to let the government of Ghana know how much we're appreciative of everything that they're doing for us. But 2 weeks ago, I was in Stu as in Koso Ohene, and more so. So my new name is Nana Akwesi Dentra, and I just wanted to show that we love Ghana and that we are continuing to invest and engage in everything that we're doing in the country.
Oh, I'm very excited. You know, it's a very, what should I say, just an exciting day for us. You know, many of us have been waiting for this for a long time. Like me, I've been living in Ghana 20 years. I've been married to my husband 43 years. So, you know, the people, the country itself, and, you know, everybody here is so welcoming. That's the thing. It's a very pleasant place to live. The people are pleasant. The environment is pleasant, you know, and we feel free here.
I always want to come here to meet and greet and help my brothers and sisters, always. And I just happen to be Ghana. I'm glad I came to Ghana. It's a wonderful country. Such wonderful, warm people.
Excellent. I feel great. It's been a long time coming. I'm very happy. I feel fulfilled. And I feel like it's really a dream come true for me. My life is unfolding beautifully in Ghana. And I'm happy to finally get Ghana citizenship. It's a really big deal.
It is an honor for me, on behalf of His Excellency the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo,
to welcome you all to this memorable occasion on the swearing in of our brothers and sisters of the African American and Caribbean diaspora community as Ghanaians. I'll add again. The Ministry of the Interior, after a careful scrutiny of the applications of 126 members of the diaspora community, recommended the grant of Ghanaian citizenship by His Excellency the President to our brothers and sisters. He granted it, and therefore we are here today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, following the illustrious tradition of our first president, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, George Padmore, and particularly that of Dr. Y.E.B. Du Bois, Pan-Africanism has remained both the cornerstone and the unique cliché of Ghana's foreign policy. This tradition, His Excellency the President has rekindled and demonstrated by the establishment of the Diaspora Affairs Directorate under the office of the President. He wants them under him, under his eagle eyes. And what a team we have, led by Brother Ababio. The Year of Return program in 2019 was further to demonstrate government's commitment to this. In a related development, the beyond the return activities currently being pursued by the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture is a further step in the right direction. I am glad to state that you are our own people who have chosen to return home and make Ghana your preferred home. You are welcome and you are assured of our hospitality, Akwaba.
I think it is a spiritual healing for those who are receiving this citizenship. As you know, some years ago, they were forced into migration when they didn't have any choice. And for those who went away to the plantation farms several years ago, even though it's about more than 400 years, those who have found the descendants who have found their way back to Ghana are looking for that spiritual healing, are looking for not just the citizenship that we have given them, by restoration. We are restoring citizenship for them. So when a person of this kind is getting a citizenship, it is not the same as Ghana giving citizenship to a Lebanese, to an Indian, to an American, to a white, a Caucasian, or a British guy. This is a different sort of ceremony, which is why the Interior Ministry and the Diaspora Affairs Office finds it necessary to organize something special, and on occasion like this, give the citizenship back to them. So it is a restoration of the citizenship that they have lost so many years ago, which we have given back to them.
I spent all of 2023 reading, listening, and deciphering these transcripts, which come from the Library of Congress. For those that don't know, the Library of Congress is a research library in Washington, D.C. that serves as the library and research service of the U.S. Congress and the de facto National Library of the United States. Founded in 1800, the library is the United States' oldest federal cultural institution. The Library of Congress is one of the largest libraries in the world. It has more than 3,000 employees. Its collections are universal, not limited by subject, format, or national boundary, and includes research materials from all parts of the world in more than 470 languages. Its collection contains approximately 173 million items, including the heart of this discussion, the slave narratives. The slave narratives, a folk history of slavery in the United States, is a collection of histories by formerly people undertaken by the Federal Writers' Progress of the Works of Progress Administration from 1936 to 1938. It was the simultaneous effort of state-level branches of FWP in 17 states working largely separately from each other. FWP administrators sought to develop a new appreciation for the elements of American life from different backgrounds, including that of the last generation of formerly enslaved individuals. The collections of life histories and materials on African American life that resulted and gave impetus to the collection. I'm going to play some of the few recorded interviews from this collection. I've already gave my viewer discretion, so let's proceed.
Talk to who?
Well, just tell me what your name is.
My name is Fountain Hughes. I was born in Charlottesville, Virginia. My grandfather belonged to Thomas Jefferson. My grandfather was 115 years old when he died. And now I am 101 years old. That's enough. She used to work, but what she made, I don't know. I never asked her.
You just go ahead and talk away there. You don't mind, do you, Uncle Fountain?
Now, and when now your husband and you both are young, you all try to live like young people ought to live. Don't want everything somebody else has got. Whatever you get, it is yours. Be satisfied. And don't spend your money until you get it. So many people get in debt. Well, it was cheap and I bought it. You spend your money before you get it because you're going in debt. And they put you up on the bed and bid on you, the same as you're bidding on cattle, you know.
Was that in Charlotte that you were a slave? Was that in Charlotte or Charlottesville?
That is in Charlottesville.
Charlottesville, Virginia.
Sell the women, sell the men. Oh, and then if they had any bad ones, they'd sell them to the nigger traders, what they call the nigger traders, and they'd ship them down south and sell them down south. But otherwise, if you were a good person, they wouldn't sell you. But if you were bad and mean, they didn't want to beat you and knock you around, they'd sell you to the what called a nigger trader. They'd have a regular sale every month, you know, at the courthouse. And then they'd sell you maybe $200, $100, $500.
Were you ever sold from one person to another? Were you ever sold?
God's going to handle my angels. He's going to kill me now. I said, you didn't hook me yet to death. I said, you ain't hooked me. You ain't hooked salvation of me. You ain't even hooked grace out of me. And I've been bold to God. I said, no, kill me. I said, glory to God, kill me. He said, no, stop me. God didn't know what didn't know. That's why I kept my watch face. God didn't make that white man let me know.
What's that white man do with that old slave? Tell us about that.
There's an overseer.
Yeah, that old overseer. Tell us about that.
There's an overseer. And the children, his mom left back behind. He did it.
Tell us about that.
There's an overseer.
Yeah, that old overseer. Tell us about that.
There's an overseer. And the children, his mom left back behind. He did it so nice to the old, because he was just like brothers and sisters, the white children was. They all raised up together. One went backward, too late in the fall. They went backward. And then the white ones put on their shoes, the white children, like that, or half-way. He put on ours. And he pulled off theirs, we pulled off ours. We just raised just things again. And my old missus goes to sometimes kitchen said, I really love your niggas better than you. Yes, I do. For my niggas is my money. And I was doing my young niggas with not today. He says, when I die and go into work, he says, put him in good place. And then the youngest girl had to be married before she could have supper with anything. And I got on her line. And he carried me up on New Year's Day, put me on the block. Did you hire? I looked at her, I said, I don't know poor white man to hire me. I said, see, I'm rich nigga. I said, see, my people is just saying my own folks, my rich person. A white man had 5 plantations. And there that plantation is just like what we need here, the whole plenty of everything. Cows, milk cows, dairy, smoke houses, music plenty, everything horse could wish for was in that plantation. I'd been raised up, just not slaves with me, double slaves with me. The dormant children away from hell to heaven, and the dormant.
I never heard that.
That's what I know. That's yeah, why? And he walked, he straight like a peacock all the time. So one morning she's out putting out some dishwater. And she cleaned out the dishpan and she looked around and saw my father down on his knees right on the sidewalk. She told Master Jeff. Master Jeff sent for the boy to come to the shop, come to the house, and asked him who learned him how to write. He said, Master Jeff, I learned how to write in Richmond, Virginia. Little white boy learned how to write before he went down here. He did, yes, sir. He gave him pencil. He said, write my name. My father's name, Isaiah. He called it Mike. Write my name. He wrote Jeff Davis' name. He wrote Joe Davis. He wrote Joe Davis. He wrote Vicksburg. He wrote Vicksburg. He said, Ike, that's pretty nice for you. And he sent him back to the shop. And Master Jeff sent to Richmond, Virginia, and got 2 teachers. He opened a night school. He educated all his niggas. He made my father a civil engineer. And they made Cotton Eye Montgomery his bookkeeper. And on, they made different ones, farmers, carpenters, sawmills, gins, all like that. That's the curriculum of my father and Cotton Eye Montgomery. Cotton Eye was born Davis, man. He was born on Hurricane Plantation, just giant piece of Briarfield. I was born on Briarfield. Master Jeff had 5 plantations over there. Ursina, Briarfield, Hurricane, Palmyra, and Lake Place. It all belonged to Master Jeff. And he had all those niggas from different places, all the planets to come to that school. Night school. He gave them all a formal education. When they all got free, they could take care of themselves. He had so much business he couldn't hire folks who got business. He just needed education so he could tend to his business. And everyone to learn to tend to Master Jeff's business. Everyone admired him, obeyed him. Okay, while he's gone, he obeyed Master Jeff. Once Master Jeff was going to land in the boogie, in the hack, the gate was
What is that you said? What is that you said, Uncle Bob?
What about?
The machine went off. I didn't hear you.
I said I'm glad Noah got acquainted with you because I believe he's a good man and I want him to be with a good man.
Well, tell me, where were you born, Uncle Bob?
I was born not far from this place, up here south, west of here, about 5 miles.
And how old are you?
Well, now, I told you about old this 7 or something, 2 or 3 to me. He do me that way just as sure as I'm living.
Well, what was it the old merchant? What was it the old merchant told you? You told the old merchant down here at
Mr.
Mooringport.
Me and him was talking down one day, and wasn't nobody in there but me.
I say exactly what you said now.
Yes, wasn't nobody in there but me and him and his son and his son's daughter. And I said, Mr. Carvin, I forgot exactly how old I was, but anyhow, I said, I'm 61 or 2 years old. And I never had no trouble in my life. I said, I never asked the Noahs for a nickel, but they didn't give it to me.
in my life, and now one of them never cussed at me. And so I ain't never been summoned, and ain't never been arrested, and ain't never been to the jailhouse but twice in my life, and ain't been to the courthouse but twice. He looked at me and cussed. He said, well, Bob, I'll be down. That ain't too much for a nigga to say. He said, ain't that white man.
How do, Uncle Billy? How are you this evening?
Feeling very well.
Can I have a seat?
Uncle Billy, come sit right here and let's... Oh, you want to...
I think maybe...
All right, right over there. Sit in that. How about the Jew Ral? Don't come to my house.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
All right, singing that.
Don't come to my house. Don't come to my house. Horn over horn. Horn, nigga, horn.
You heard and seen it. This is what you call a malapropism. It is the use of an incorrect word in the place of a word with a similar sound, either unintentionally or for comedic effect, in which I see no humor in this. This can also be contributed to the southern drawl or the accent depending on the dialect that dictates the pronunciation. Also factor in that our ancestors were not allowed to be educated, so no one corrected them on their proper pronunciation or told them to enunciate. This evidence cannot be denied, in that the word is carried over from our oppressor to the oppressed in first account that has been passed down through generations and its meaning has been perverted. We never took this word back. Our ancestors just simply misquoted the slave master, so it still holds its derogatory roots. The swastika, an ancient religious cultural symbol predominantly in various Eurasian as well as some African American cultures. It was a symbol of peace. In the West, it is more widely recognized as a symbol of the German Nazi Party, who has appropriated it from the Asian cultures starting in the early 20th century. The appropriation continues with its use of neo-Nazis around the world. The Bloods and Crips are known as rival gangs and had some of the bloodiest and longest war by some accounts. Some sources from some second and third generation members from both sides, even some that were around since the inception, recount that they were initially formed to protect neighborhoods from racist white gangs that terrorized black communities because racist police refused to protect them. Trigger Warning with Killer Mike is an American documentary streaming television series on Netflix. It is hosted by the hip-hop artist Killer Mike that exposes issues in America that affect the black community, including drugs, gangs, religion, and poverty. In episode 3 of Trigger Warning, Mike assists the Crips and Blood gangs to develop their own legitimate brands through the new soda business. In the episode, you can see them getting rejected to distribute their products in local stores. The perversion of the identities of these symbols have put such a blemish on the world, it cannot be returned to its former status of something positive and just so easily. Just look at a man that was falsely failure to return to his former image even after proven innocent. The effort is commendable nonetheless, but this word, much like the word virgin, is locked into one reaction and one meaning, and just like the word virgin has its division about how it should be used. Now, with a subject like this, a few of my opinions are incorporated along with the facts stated. And even with the facts are stated, there's always an opinion or conflicting fact to the contrary. I actually explored the contrary of this subject matter, so through research, a word in the dictionary is ever changing. A few sources that I learned that there are 4 pieces of criteria to add a word to the dictionary. It is a word used by a lot of people. It is used by those people largely in the same way. It is likely to stick around, and it is useful to a general audience. The people responsible for adding words to the dictionary are what we refer to as lexicographers. Multiple sources state that a lexicographer require a bachelor's degree, preferably in English or linguistics, with the standout skills such as advanced comprehension, reading, writing, and communication skills. Other sources state that the candidate needs a master's degree or doctoral.
There's a lecture every minute, from the homeless to the vote. It's a different message, and we'll shove it down your throat.
The number of full-time working English language lexicographers in the United States, including freelancers, are well below 200 according to the New York Times. According to Mental Floss, they interviewed a few of the world's top dictionaries in 2019. A representative from Merriam-Webster stated that being a lexicographer doesn't require a specific degree. Jesse Shieldauer of the Oxford Dictionary states, there was a university that once offered a degree in lexicography, but there are no dictionaries houses that would hire someone with a degree in lexicography in general. The people who are going to be teaching are probably not experienced practical lexicographers, and the kind of things that you need to do on the job would rather be different than what academics would study if you were studying lexicography.
Right, Sterling! What's the plan?
In general, you want someone with some, but not too much training in some kind of general humanities discipline, Shieldauer says. Not someone with a PhD, because people with a PhD tend to think you can spend the rest of your life studying things, and when you're actually working for a dictionary, you have a list of 50 things you have to get done by the end of the week.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
The fact that one of them or all of them might be super interesting doesn't mean you can spend 3 weeks studying the same thing. I hate looking at documentaries that leave you with the knowledge of a harsh reality and just abruptly end. There is a silver lining to this knowledge. We are living in the age of information, and someone told me that black people were torn down and broken for 400 years, and it may take them another 400 years to bring us back to the form of glory we relished in the days of past. I'm a little more optimistic than this. During the wars over 50 years ago, we did not have the internet to inform or misinform us. Our African American servicemen were able to travel internationally and saw history at its raw form and bring it back to America. And I must admit, for the longest, I thought that slavery was our origin point, just from the word of law from my elementary textbooks. The internet was officially introduced to the public on April 30th, 1993, and we have begun celebrating Columbus Day as a national holiday since October 12th, 1937. And with the help of this information age, you can trace it back to the articles as far as 2012, and seen the masses shun the man as a fraud on social media as early as 2019. So a little under 3 decades, there was a mass awakening to what was real and what was propaganda. The unintentional bubble of self-hatred we are trapped in must be burst. In the last chapter, what the information presented makes the word definitions presented in fact valid, to the contrary of my misinformed point of view usage, if you want to look at it that way. However, I also presented the criteria of the word to be added to the dictionary. And also, do you hold the validity of the people that put these words into the law as you would the older generation that governed the lexicon of our language that has in fact contributed to the perversion in the derogatory term in question? In other words, in order for a word to become part of the dictionary, it has to win a popularity contest from which everything you know now is to make it unpopular, like the celebration of Columbus Day.
Stop talking about it.
coupled with other forms of healing, emotional, physical, and economical, I truly believe that we do not have much farther to go in this particular section in this healing process. Thank you for watching.